YouTube? Welcome to Fred's Full Throttle. In today's video, I'm going to cover several different respected outlets' coverage of the C8 Z06 and what their impressions and feedback are on the car. While the majority of the information is likely what you'd expect, there are two surprises lurking kind of in plain sight in all the details, which caught me a little bit off guard. So join me today as we continue digging in on the C8 Z06, and we'll find out everything that we can. Quickly, before we get into that, I wanted to address last week. It turns out that my wife and I both caught COVID on our flight back from our trip to Utah. Having spent the majority of our time away from others and wearing masks when we weren't, the glaring, "where did we get exposed?" came down to the 5-hour flight back. Fortunately though, we both came through okay, though it definitely was a really unpleasant experience. My intent was to make a quick video last week, at least explaining that I was sick, but COVID came in so fast, I didn't even have the energy to do that. I did post to YouTube and Facebook about what happened, but didn't have the ability to do more. I want to just say a special thanks to everybody who did reach out or saw those posts. We both really appreciate the support, so thank you. But enough of all that, let's talk about the Z06. Up first, let's go through the road and track review of the car. Their review is interesting in how it started. They decided to start with the cons, or the negatives of the car, an admittedly small list, and then spend the rest of their review talking about how great the car is. The negatives added up to just a handful of things, including the squircle steering wheel that's not quite square, not quite a circle, but is frequently annoying to get used to if you're making massive directional changes. Apparently hand over hand is a little bit of a challenge. Next is the ever-present panel gaps around the car. This is something that the Stingray shares, though each car seems to be a bit of a roll of the dice on how significant this either is or isn't. Next, they say the divider between the driver and the passenger is lined with buttons that can be hard to read, sometimes needing to shade them with your hand. And then also that overall split between the occupants can be a little bit annoying at times. And their last criticism was that the DCT will occasionally deny a downshift. And that's it. As the review goes on to say, the Z06 is utterly fantastic. They say, and I quote, "The new Z06 is an unbelievable car, an inherently special thing that feels it at any speed, with a presence just sitting there that cars 3 times its price wish they had." One of their key points that they hammer home several times is that the mid-engine layout was never about the Stingray. Early in the C8 Stingray's initial press tour, Taj and others would frequently hint, cite, or mention that the mid-engine platform was designed for the upper models of the C8 line. It lends a significant weight to the idea that the C8 platform was really designed for the Z06, and that the Stingray was a bit of a walking back exercise of how do we make a Stingray from the Z06. That I know of, I haven't heard confirmation that this was the case, but it certainly feels like it could be that way. Road and Track lavishes further praise on the car, highlighting how fast it is, how good it sounds, and how the brakes never faded the littlest bit, despite hauling the car down from high triple-digit speeds all day long in their testing. They mention on Monticello that the Z06 was under a second behind the current lap record holder there, the illustrious AMG GT Black. Now keep in mind that the AMG GT Black has more power, makes significantly more torque, and weighs less than the C8 Z06. I'll also point out that the AMG GT Black is currently the second place production car record holder at the Nürburgring with a 6:43. It's a hugely fast car, but ultimately it's not using as ideal an engine layout. I think that sub 7-minute lap time is well in reach for the Z06, potentially even close to the AMG's time. For those thinking that I might be prognosticating a little bit too much, keep in mind that Monticello is a fast track with a length of over 4.1 miles and a back straight that frequently put the AMG and the Z06 in the high 140s. I think a lot of people are going to be properly surprised at how low the official ring time is going to be. Now moving on to Car and Driver, their list of criticisms was even shorter, consisting of the Cup 2Rs not being good in the rain, duh, and driving the car made everyone want to own one. As if that's a bad thing. Their list of accolades and superlatives echoed very much what Road and Track had said also. They said, quote, "When the weather permitted, we put the top down and soaked up the intoxicating engine note. And to anyone who thinks that the low RPM gut punch of the previous generation Z06's supercharged small block just has to be more exciting, we say, try revving an LT6 all the way up, then talk to us." I'm inclined to agree. These aren't media darlings or paid marketers levying this praise. These are professional car reviewers. These are people who've driven every production car under the sun, who've sampled the entire array of what the automotive industry has to offer, from the simplest econo car to the most exotic track weaponry that you can spend money on. So who are you going to listen to? The grumpy old C8 Z06 owner who hasn't experienced the car saying that their car is faster, or people whose job it is to analyze and review cars? I fall firmly in the camp of don't knock it till you try it. Now continuing, Car and Driver had some other complimentary things to say. The car feels like a race car on the track. It sounds like a race car everywhere, and is comfortably street drivable in all versions, including the Z07 equipped cars. For those of you looking for your speed fix, but also wanting to arrive comfortably, this sounds very promising. Now between these two reviews, I noticed two things that somewhat surprised me, which I think deserve a little bit of analysis. First was that both publications commented that the speed was accessible and approachable. When you're talking about cars that can put down the kind of numbers that this car can, traditionally you're talking about some fairly scary cars. Cars with nicknames like Widowmaker. Cars which the manufacturer gives you warnings with, like with the GT2 RS. Cars like the Viper ACR or the 720S, which carry reputations of being a car that will bite you if you don't drive it with some respect. Words like accessible and approachable might as well be a foreign language to cars like that. Yet, the Z06 somehow manages to embrace those terms. Review after review has been saying the same thing. You can get in the car and it's a puppy dog to drive. Eager, willing, and dare I say happy to do whatever you want. From putting around town, well, more of growling around town, all the way to hammering down the streets at 140 miles an hour plus. The Z06, by all accounts, brings that experience right to you and I, the enthusiast driver. Most of us aren't racing drivers. A few more of us maybe are track day rats, but the reality is that most of us are a long way from being real experts in high performance driving. The Z06 takes that insane performance it offers and makes it reachable and inspires confidence. It drives so solidly that you could do things you never thought possible, or at least be able to be done safely in relatively short order. While this maybe shouldn't come as a surprise, when you see them benchmarking it against cars like the GT2 RS, a car that pro drivers even take a while to warm up to, it's even more remarkable that this car can offer this kind of performance at this kind of price and make it accessible. The other point, which became pretty apparent if you watch any of the road driving videos, is that the car is involving and engaging, keeping you, the driver, firmly in the middle of the driving process rather than as an accessory. This, in my opinion, is even more important than the outright speed that the car is capable of. This is what will ultimately make the car fun now and for years to come for any owner. Sure, there's a certain portion of the car world who just wants outright speed. There are plenty of cars that can do that. If you don't care about involvement or engagement, just go buy a Tesla Plaid. But for the rest of us, we buy cars like this to have every sense peaked, every sensation amplified. We buy cars like this for the fun. I've said before that my biggest worry about the Z06 has been giving up my beloved manual and my C7 Grand Sport for some paddles. However, the more I watched videos of the car and the more I listened to the reviewers, the more it became clear. This car delivers on that experience front. The crackling engine, the snaps of well-timed downshifts, the blips and howls the car makes as it muscles up or down through the gears. Reviewer after reviewer have been marveling at how a car with a DCT can truly engage you, the driver. And yet, it apparently can. Road and Track perhaps sums it up best, saying, the Z06 makes you a part of the equation at any speed. The wild engine and the communicative controls keep you involved at all times. That all goes back to the targets that Jupiter had set for the team. From all the videos that I've watched, I get every impression that this car pulls you in, puts you front and center, and involves you in the theater that's happening all around you. The old school crowd is quick to dismiss this, of course. Whatever car Chevy makes isn't as good as the last one they made, or conveniently the one that they own. Road and Track, though, has a pretty good answer on this from their recent review. They state, GM's track record for performance cars has few blemishes, yet people always want to put them down based on perception, not experience. Real car enthusiasts are celebrating that Chevy is making a car like this, not dwelling on the past and missing a chance to enjoy something great. This car is for the enthusiasts. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, Fred out!